But let's get right to the 2024 race for the White House. New polling showing most Republicans still support Donald Trump's campaign despite his mounting legal trouble. And on the Democratic side, President Joe Biden is expected to formally launch his re-election campaign as early as tomorrow, setting the stage for a possible 2020 rematch. For more on those latest poll numbers, let's bring in NBC News national correspondent Steve Kornacki at the big board. Steve, what do those poll numbers tell us?
Yeah, a rematch that just based on the sort of the facts on the ground and in some of these numbers that's very possible, and a rematch that I think if it does take place would be very unpopular with voters. We can show you that in these numbers here. First of all, start with this. Joe Biden's approval rating, perhaps on the eve of announcing his re-election bid, he sits at 41% approval in our poll, 54% disapproval. Compare that to just a couple months ago, the start of the new Congress, the wake of the 2022 midterms. This is actually a tick below where he started the year. He was 45-50 at the start of the year, 5 points underwater then. Now 41-54, 13 points under the water. One of the things driving this is you ask specifically about the economy, approve, disapprove on the economy. Biden continues to be under 40% on the economy in terms of his job approval, a 38% job approval on the economy. Now take a look at the Republican side here. We did do the horse race question, the national take the temperature of the Republicans nationally. You see Trump leading here. You see DeSantis, the only one of the other at this moment potential or announced opponents of Trump getting any traction here meaningfully. DeSantis running 15 points behind Trump. Everybody else, including Trump's former vice president Mike Pence, running back in single digits. I think one notable thing we found in this poll is we asked Republican-leaning voters specifically about these legal issues involving Trump and their attitudes towards them, and basically asked Republicans, gave them a choice in this poll, said, should, in light of these legal issues, should you look for somebody to run in 2024 who's not distracted, somebody different, somebody new who wouldn't be distracted, or do you see these legal issues as an attack, as a partisan motivated attack on Donald Trump, and therefore it's time for Republicans to stand behind him and defeat his opponents? 26% said, let's go for someone without any distractions, let's go for someone else. 68% said, let's rally behind Trump. So I think that's a number worth keeping in mind, because we know these legal issues are going to keep percolating in the headlines throughout the year. That's a number worth keeping in mind in terms of how Republican voters seem to react when that makes the news. Notably here, if you take a look, again, when I say the country wouldn't be too enthusiastic about a rematch, we ask all Americans here, should Joe Biden run for re-election? 26% say yes, 70% say no. Should Donald Trump run for his old job? 35% say yes, 60% say no. Big majorities say they don't want either one of them running. And yet again, as we say, ironically, the most likely scenario here might be a rematch between them. We show you the problems Biden has. And one of the problems is we had a generic ballot question here. We said, would you vote for in 2024 if he runs? Would you vote for Joe Biden or the Republican? When you put it that way and just say the Republican, Biden loses by 6 points. But when you start putting some names here, it starts to look a little bit different. This is the positive-negative score. Joe Biden, not very popular, 38% positive, 48% negative score. But look at Donald Trump. Much less popular, 34% positive, 53% negative. So just in terms of broad impressions of Joe Biden and Donald Trump among voters, Biden's underwater by 10, Trump's underwater by almost twice as much. For Democrats in 2022, that helps explain why they were able to have a pretty decent midterm in the face of some pretty poor poll numbers for Joe Biden. It was the unpopularity of the Republican Party, the particular unpopularity of Donald Trump. I think a lot of the overhang of Donald Trump and his reaction, unwillingness to concede the 2020 election, January 6th, that helped Democrats in 2022. You look at a lot of these numbers. If it is going to be Biden running for re-election, they're hoping, Democrats are hoping certainly this would be their saving grace again in 2024.
All right, Steve Kornacki, thank you very much.
I'm just curious, what's your bottom line here, Steve, of all of these numbers, some conflicting numbers that you've seen?
So I think the most interesting one, if we go back to that, we'll call it up on the screen here, the Republican kind of horse race here nationally, is We've seen numbers kind of all over the place in different polls on this question of how close is DeSantis, how big is Trump's lead. We have it at 15. There have been other polls that have had it higher. There have been some that have it a little bit closer. The two things that I key in on, and we've been looking at these numbers the last couple months, are number one, what I just showed you there, we had it in our poll. Every time one of these legal issues, like the Manhattan DA issue, one of these legal issues comes up involving Trump, it seems there's a reflexive reaction among Republican voters to rally around Donald Trump. That answer there, where 68% said they view these legal issues as primarily partisan motivated attacks on Donald Trump, attempts to keep him from taking back the White House, and therefore in response they say we Republicans should rally around Trump. So I think that's worth keeping in mind, because, again, these legal issues, as you say, they're going to keep popping up throughout 2023, maybe into 2024. Does it have a rally around Trump effect in the Republican Party every time that it does? And the second is on the Republican side. We see it in our poll. We've seen it in every other poll I've looked at. We talk about that college, non-college divide. And Donald Trump does so much better than DeSantis when it comes to, particularly among white voters without college degrees. And in Republican primary politics over the last generation, but particularly since Donald Trump emerged in 2016, that group just demographically has been ascendant in the Republican Party. And if you can kind of, monopolize that group or gobble up most of the support from that group, that's the biggest single group you could have in the Republican side. And so that's where Trump, I think, has his biggest advantage over DeSantis. And that's where DeSantis or anybody is going to have to make inroads if they're going to have a chance of knocking off Trump.
And I'm curious, Steve, what is your take on Joe Biden constantly underperforming? We can look back to the 22 midterms. It was supposed to be a red wave. Joe Biden pulls off something that no president has in their first off-year election since FDR in 1934. We saw him just discounted and left for dead politically after Iowa, after New Hampshire. He's been underestimated his entire life. I see these numbers, and it's certainly no knock against the pollster or anybody interpreting the numbers. Those numbers with Joe Biden, they mean nothing, it seems, because we've underestimated one time after another, and as even Newt Gingrich said, Republicans are doing the same thing to Joe Biden that Democrats did to Ronald Reagan and Eisenhower. They underestimated him at both of those guys at their own risk, and it seems the same with Biden here. Why do his numbers on issues seem so well? Why does he seem so aligned with voters on issues, and yet it just never translates in poll numbers until Election Day?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think all of the numbers out there about Biden that we saw in 2022, as I'm showing you here, we're still seeing in 2023. So for Biden, the White House, and for Democrats, I still think those are flashing warning signs as they head into a re-election year. What we learned in 2022, however, was these numbers were a lot more significant in the midterm election than we were accustomed to seeing. And what I'm talking about here is the opposition party and the former president. There was a dynamic in the 2022 midterms that, frankly, we just hadn't seen in modern times. You think back to, for instance, Barack Obama got elected in 2008 and then suffered a brutal midterm. Democrats suffered a brutal midterm in 2010. This was 2 years after a Republican president, George W. Bush, had left office with an approval rating under 30%. Well, what did Bush do for those 2 years? George W. Bush, 2009 and 2010, he vanished. He disappeared from the public spotlight. He basically didn't utter a word. And so this is what we're used to seeing. We're used to seeing former presidents recede into the shadows, and we're used to seeing the opposition party in midterm elections basically function as a protest vehicle. And the midterm becomes a referendum on the president, a referendum on the governing party. In my whole lifetime, and Joe, I think your career in politics, you've heard the same thing. Every president comes in, goes into a midterm election, and you hear them all say, we're going to make this a choice and not a referendum. And they always say it, and they always fail. Well, in 2022, Democrats succeeded. And I think that's because of the unusual prominence of Donald Trump, the aftermath of January 6th, the fact that last summer, months before the midterm election, you have primetime January 6th hearings that brought the thing back vividly for Americans to sort of relive. You had the raid on Mar-a-Lago. You had Trump-aligned candidates winning primary after primary, echoing his rhetoric about the 2020 elections. And so this became a factor. the fact that Donald Trump was significantly less popular than Joe Biden, the fact that the Republican Party was less popular than the Democratic Party, these things became factors in the 2022 midterms. And I think that's the bet Democrats, you see Joe Biden lining up to run here. I think that's the bet they're making. The bet they're making is that Republicans will nominate Trump again, and that just as in 2022, there were those swing voters who ultimately were not wild about Biden and the Democrats, but could not bring themselves to vote for Trump and the Republicans. They'll have the same reaction in 2024.
All right, Steve Kornacki, thank you so much. Stevie the Big Board, that's great. Also, one other thing that sometimes we overlook, Nancy Pelosi's husband, Paul, being brutally, savagely attacked at his home.
And then mobbed by Republicans.
Brought home the dangers of political violence coming from Republicans and Republican conspiracy theorists. And then, yes, you're exactly right. Republicans and some of the wealthiest people in the world lying about Paul Pelosi, mocking Paul Pelosi, creating these conspiracy theories. That's something that certainly, unfortunately, again, connected violence on January 6th to the violence and the threat of violence that still lurks out there because of some people on the right who have fascist tendencies. And I'm being really polite when I say tendencies. That word tendencies next to fascist, it's doing a lot.
You know, when you talk to some of them, you really do realize that it's more than tendencies, that it's a complete mindset. They truly will not bend from election denial.
Yeah.
They will not bend from Trump. They will not bend from the conspiracy theories about Paul Pelosi. And I don't know if deep inside they believe that they are lying, but it's either, you know, the cult effect of Trump or true fascism.
Well, but